Okay, Cameron, this book is called Yertle the Turtle and Other Stories by Dr. Seuss. Now, this book is one of your Uncle Ted's favorite books. See, it says, "To Ted, love Howard and Sue." This was his when he was a little boy. Grandma and Grandpa used to read it to him all the time. All right, Yertle the Turtle. On the faraway island of Salomon Sound, Yertle the Turtle was king of the pond. A nice little pond. It was clean. It was neat. The water was warm. There was plenty to eat. The turtles have everything turtles might need, and they were all happy, quite happy indeed. They were until Yertle, the king of them all, decided the kingdom he ruled was too small. "I'm ruler," said Yertle, "of all that I see, but I don't see enough. That's the trouble with me. With this stone for a throne, I look down on my pond, but I cannot look down on the places beyond. This throne that I sit on is too low down. It ought to be higher," he said with a frown. "If I could sit high, how much greater I'd be. What a king. I'd be ruler of all that you see." So Yertle the Turtle, Turtle King, lifted his hand, and Yertle the Turtle King gave a command. He ordered 9 turtles to swim to a stone, and using these turtles, he built a new throne. He made each turtle stand on another one's back, and he piled them up in a 9-turtle stack. And when Yertle climbed up, he sat down on the pile. What a wonderful view! He could see for a mile. "All mine," cried Yertle. "Oh, the things I now rule! I'm king of the cow, and I'm king of the mule. I'm king of the house, and what's more beyond that, I'm king of the blueberry bush and the cat. I'm Yertle the Turtle. Oh, marvelous me, for I am the ruler of all that I see." And all through that morning, he sat there up high, saying over and over, "A great king am I," until long about noon. Then he heard a faint sigh. "What's that?" snapped the king, and he looked down the stack, and he saw at the bottom a turtle named Mac, just a part of his throne. And this plain little turtle looked up and he said, "Beg your pardon, King Yertle. I've pains in my back and my shoulders and knees. How long must we stand here, your majesty, please?" "Silence!" the king of turtles barked back. "I'm king and you're only a turtle named Mac. You stay in your place while I sit here and rule. I'm king of the cow and I'm king of the mule. I'm king of the house and a bush and a cot. But that isn't all. I'll do better than that. My throne shall be higher," his royal voice thundered. "So pile up more turtles. I want about 200. "Turtles, more turtles," he bellowed and brayed. And the turtles way down in the pond were afraid. They trembled, they shook, but they came, they obeyed. From all over the pond they came swimming by dozens, whole families of turtles with uncles and cousins. And all of them stepped on the head of poor Mac. One after another they climbed up the stack. Then Yertle the Turtle was perched up so high he could see 40 miles from his throne in the sky. "Hooray!" shouted Yertle. "I'm king of the trees, I'm king of the birds, and I'm king of the bees. I'm king of the butterflies, king of the air. Ah, me, what a throne, what a wonderful chair. I'm Yertle the Turtle. Oh, marvelous me, for I am the ruler of all that I see." Then again from below, in the great heavy stack, came a groan from that plain little turtle named Mac. "Your Majesty, please, I don't like to complain, but down here below we are feeling great pain. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down at the bottom we too should have rights. We turtles can't stand it, our shells will have all crack. Besides, we need food, we are starving," groaned Mac. "You hush up your mouth," hollered the mighty King Yertle. "You've no right to talk to the world's highest turtle. I rule from the clouds, over land, over sea. There's nothing, no nothing that's higher than me." But while he was shouting, he saw with surprise that the moon of the evening was starting to rise up overhead in the darkening skies. "What's that?" snarled Yertle. "Say, what is that thing that dares to be higher than Yertle the King?
I shall not allow it. I'll go higher still. I'll build my throne higher. I can and I will. I'll call some more turtles. I'll stack them up to heaven. I need about 5,607.
But as Yertle the turtle lifted his hand and started to order and give the command, that plain little turtle below in the stack, that plain little turtle whose name was just Mac, decided he'd taken enough, and he had. And that plain little lad got a little bit mad. And that plain little Mac did a plain little thing. He burped! And his burp shook the throne of the king. And Yertle the turtle, the kings of the trees, the king of the air and the birds and the bees, the king of the house and the cow and the mule, well, that was the end of the turtle's king's rule. For Yertle, the king of a Salamoonsad, fell off his throne and fell plunk in the pond. And today, the great Yertle, that marvelous he, is the king of the mud. That is all he can see. And the turtles, of course, all the turtles are free, as turtles and maybe all creatures should be. Gertrude McFuzz. There once was a girl bird named Gertrude McFuzz, and she had the smallest plain tail ever was. One droopity-droop feather, that's all that she had. And oh, that one feather made Gertrude so sad. For there was another young bird that she knew, a fancy young birdie named Lolly Lilu, and instead of one feather behind, she had two. Poor Gertrude, wherever she happened to spy Miss Lola Lilu flying by in the sky, she got very jealous. She frowned and she pouted. Then one day she got awfully mad and she shouted, "This just isn't fair. I have one, she has two. I must have a tail that looks like Lula Lilu." So she flew to her uncle, a doctor named Dake, whose office was high in the tree by the lake, and she cried, "Uncle Doctor, oh please, do you know, some kind of pill that will make my tail grow?" "Tut, tut," said the doctor. "Doctor, such a talk, how absurd. Your tail is just right for your kind of the bird." Then Gertrude had tantrum. She raised such a din that finally her uncle, the doctor, gave in, and he told her just where she could find such a pill. On Pillberry Vine on the top of the hill. "Oh, thank you," chirped Gertrude McFuzz, and she flew right straight to the hill where the pillberry grew. Yes, there was the vine, and as soon as she saw it, she plucked off a berry. She started to gnaw it. It tasted just awful, almost made her sick, but she wanted that tail, so she swallowed it quick. Then she felt something happen. She felt a small twitch, as if she'd been tapped down behind by a switch. And Gertrude looked around, and she cheered. Oh, it was true, 2 feathers, exactly like Lula Lilu. And then she got an idea. Now I know what I'll do. I'll grow a tail better than Lula Lilu. These pills that grow feathers are working just fine. So she nibbled another one off the vine. She felt a new twitch, and then Gertrude yelled, "Whee! Miss Lola has only just 2. I have 3. When Lola Lilu sees this beautiful stuff, she'll fall right down flat on her face, sure enough. I'll show her who's pretty, I certainly will. Well, I'll make my tail even prettier still." She snatched all those berries that grew on the vine. She gobbled down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And she didn't stop eating young Gertrude McFuzz till she'd eaten 3 dozen. That's all that there was. Then the feathers popped out with a zang and a zing. They blossomed like flowers that bloom in the spring, all fit for a queen. What a sight to behold. They sparkled like diamonds and gumdrops and gold, like silk, like spaghetti, like satin, like lace. They burst out in rockets all over the place. They waved in the air, they switched in the breeze, and some were as long as branches of trees. And still they kept growing. They popped and they popped until long about sundown they finally stopped. "And now," said Gertrude, "the next thing to do is to fly right straight home and show Lula Lilu. And when Lula sees these, why, her face will get red, and she'll let out a scream, and she'll fall right down dead." Then she spread out her wings to take off from the ground, but with all those feathers she weighed 90 pounds. She yanked and she pulled and she let out a squawk that the bird couldn't fly, couldn't run, couldn't walk.
And all through that night she was stuck on the hill, and Gertrude McFuzz might be stuck up there still. If her good old Uncle Dake hadn't heard the girl yelp, he rushed to her rescue and brought along help. To lift Gertrude up almost broke all their beaks, and to fly her back home it took almost 2 weeks, and then it took almost another week more to pull out the feathers. My, Gertrude was sore.
And finally, when all the pulling was done, Gertrude, behind her, again just had that one little feather she had from as a starter. But now that's enough, because now she is smarter. The Big Brag.
The rabbit felt mighty important that day, on top of the hill in the sun where he lay. He felt so important up there on that hill that he started in bragging, as animals will. And he boasted out loud as he threw out his chest, "Of all the beasts in the world, I'm the best. On land and on sea, up even in the sky, no animal lives who is better than I." Look at that bear. "What's that?" growled a voice that was terribly gruff. "Now why do you say such ridiculous stuff?" The rabbit looked down and he saw a big bear. "I'm the best of the beasts," said the bear, "and so there."
"You're not," snapped the rabbit. "I'm better than you." "Pooh," the bear snorted. "Again I said pooh. You talk about mighty big, Mr. Rabbit, that's true, but how can you prove it? Just what can you do?" Thought the rabbit. "Now, what can I do?" He thought and he thought. Then he finally said, "Mr. Bear, do you see these 2 ears on my head? My ears are so keen and so sharp and so fine. No ears in the world can hear further than mine." "Humph," said the bear. He looked at each ear. "You say they are good," said the bear with a sneer, "but how do I know just how far they can hear?" "I'll prove," said the rabbit. "My ears are the best. You sit there and watch me. I'll prove it by test." Then he stiffened his ears till they both stood up high and pointed straight up at the blue and the sky. He stretched his ears open as wide as he could. "Shh, I am listening," he said as he stood. He listened so hard that he started to sweat, and the fur on his ears and the forehead got wet.
For 7 long minutes he stood, then he stirred, and he said to the bear, "Do you know what I heard? Do you see that far mountain? It's 90 miles off. There's a fly on the mountain. I just heard him cough." Now the cough of a fly, sir, is quite hard to hear when he's 90 miles off. But I heard it quite clear. So you see, bragged the rabbit, it's perfectly true that my ears are the best, so I'm better than you. The bear, for a moment, just sulked as he sat, for he knew that his ears couldn't hear things like that. This rabbit, he thought, made a fool out of me. Now I've got to prove that I'm better than he. So he said to the rabbit, "You hear pretty well. You can hear 90 miles. But how far can you smell? I'm the greatest smellers," he bragged. "See my nose? This nose on my face is the finest that grows. My nose can smell anything, both far and near. With my nose, I can smell twice as far as you can hear." "You can't," snapped the rabbit. "I can," growled the bear, and he stuck his big nose way up high in the air. He wiggled that nose, and he sniffed, and he snuffed. He waggled that nose, and he whiffed, and he wuffed. For more than 10 minutes, he snaffed and he snuffed. Then he said to the rabbit, "I've smelled far enough." "All right," said the rabbit. "Come on now and tell. Exactly how far is your smell that you smell?" "Oh, I'm smelling a very far smell. Away past the fly in the mountain out there. I'm smelling past many great mountains beyond 600 miles more than the edge of a pond. And way, way out there by the pond you can't see is a very small farm. On the farm is a tree. On the tree is a branch, on the branch is a nest, a very small nest where 2 tiny eggs rest, 2 hummingbird eggs, only half an inch long. But my nose, said the bear, is so wonderfully strong. My nose is so good that I smelled without fail, that the egg on the left is a little bit stale. And that is a thing that no rabbit can do. So, you see, the bear boasted, I'm better than you. My smeller's so keen that it just can't be beat. Now, boys, oops, what's that? Called a voice from way down by his feet. The bear and the rabbit looked down at the sound, and they saw an old worm crawling on the ground. Now, boys, said the worm, you've been bragging a lot. You both think you're great, but I think you are not. You're not half as good as a fellow like me. You hear and you smell, but how far can you see? Now I'm here to prove to you, big boasting guys, that your nose and your ears aren't as good as my eyes. Huh? The little old worm cocked his head to one side, and he opened his eyes and opened them wide. And they looked far away from a strange sort of stare, as if they were burning 2 holes in the air. The eyes of that worm almost popped from his head. He stared half an hour till his eyelids got red. That's enough, growled the bear. Tell the rabbit and me, how far did you look and just what did you see? Well, boys, the worm answered, that look that I took was a look that looked further than you'll ever look. I looked across the ocean way out to Japan, for I can see further than anyone can. There's no one on earth who has eyesight that's finer. I looked past Japan, then I looked across China, I looked across Egypt, then I took a quick glance across 2 countries of Holland and France. Then I looked across England and also Brazil, but I didn't stop there. I looked much farther still. And I kept right on looking and looking until I'd looked around the whole world and right back to this hill. And I saw on this hill, since my eyesight's so keen, the 2 biggest fools that have ever been seen. And the fools that I saw were none other than you, who seem to have nothing else better to do than sit here and argue who's better than who. Then the little old worm gave his head a small jerk, and he dived in his hole and went back to his work. And left them dumbfounded. The end.